We do have a quorum. I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you would rise, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Williams. Oh. No? All right. We will start with patron comments. Any school district patron may present information to the board at this time. Presentations will be limited to no more than 5 minutes. The board will not take action on any issue not included on the published agenda. However, all comments will be taken into consideration by the Board of Education. Patrons are requested not to discuss individual faculty, staff, or students. Patrons are reminded that this is a public forum and comments relative to individuals could result in litigation. However, any patron may request to meet with the board in executive session. No response will be given by the board at this time.
We need to
Oh.
approve the agenda.
Sorry, we'll go back to that. All right. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All right. Okay. So now we'll go to patron comments. As of now, we don't have anybody on the list. Is there anybody that would like to speak tonight? All right. That will take us to reports. We will start with the MSBA superintendent search. Dr. Cowherd is here to present some information for us.
How are you guys tonight?
Very good, thanks.
Good. Good to see you. I do have a report for you I want to give to you, if you didn't already get it. Okay, well, I'm excited to share with you the information that we received from the survey and then also from the stakeholder forums that we held. And again, I feel like I do this a lot, but I certainly want to thank Dr. Welly and Cameron Porter for their work and then April for setting all that up and getting the groups together and just the organization throughout the day. It was really good. And so we're going to walk through this and just kind of give you the report of putting these two items together and the feedback that we've gotten. So I think you'll appreciate what we have here. So do I click? We can click. So really the objective, and I'll share with you the same thing we shared with all of the groups as we're meeting, and really it was about just to share some key superintendent search information about that and what's happening to get a better understanding of what your stakeholders are looking for and what they want to recommend to you. And then also to get a more diverse view from different stakeholders. And I'll share with you in just a minute the different groups that we did meet with. And then to begin to focus on the top priorities for your new superintendent. And we will also use this information to help guide your screening questions and your interview questions because we want to make sure we're reflective because it is a closed search. We want to make sure we're reflective of what your stakeholders have asked for and what they're looking for. So on the search itself, we did host these community forums and I met with the following groups. So I met with the Chamber of Commerce group, academic leadership team, your operations team, your teachers union, community members, which was a great evening that we had. And then we had some in the Booster Club. That was the smallest group that we had, but they were very vocal about what they wanted to share. And so we appreciated that very much. And literally what I did was take all of those groups and put it back onto an Excel spreadsheet and start cross-referencing everything and see where everything lined up to how it lined up onto the survey. So we'll start with what that looked like. And so our survey actually came in. So you had 192 responses. I think we're always disappointed in the number of responses we get, to be frank with you. Any survey that you do anymore, I don't know if it's survey fatigue or what it is. It was well publicized. It was out there every place we could possibly think of to put it, in the paper or anything else. However, you can see that the largest group that responded was your parents, followed by your teachers, and then your support staff. So I think this will give you a pretty good view of what we were looking at. And so one of the first things we ask about on that survey is, what are the strengths of your school district? So what is going well for Green Valley? And the number one thing was really maintaining that small town feel of community and that strong sense that you guys have of community here. Caring, dedicated, high-quality teachers and staff, which is always great to see. High academic standards. I think you're going to hear some other news about that later tonight. Student-centered approach and individual support, and then your strong leadership that you have. And so those are all things that look good. And those are just a couple of quotes that came up. I think they're really good. Particularly, I like the one that the investment of the development of your students. That is huge, and that's a compliment to you. There's always challenges. I call these opportunities for improvement. There's always ways that we can do things better. This was big, and this was not a surprise. This is actually coming up everywhere we go. Teacher pay and retention. Probably one of the biggest challenges there is out there right now. Clear and consistent communication and expectations district-wide. So that's different levels that they're talking about, and then from the district even out to the community. Student behavior, accountability, and consistent expectations. You're no different than any other district. Literally coming back after COVID, seen a lot of behavioral issues and changes and challenges. I think those are starting to level out a little bit, but there's still some challenges when you have that. And then improving learning through the environment, curriculum, and standards. And then equity, diversity, and student support. Very, very much around that piece of just understanding that you are a district that is changing. Every district is. And just being cognizant of what those changes are and what you need to do to address those. The next questions that we asked were really about what were they desired traits that they had. And so if you took the survey, the first one was, what are the 3 professional traits? And so these traits are taken from a national standard list of what is the most important for them to have. And then what are the 3 personal traits? And it's interesting, I put these into a couple of categories here. And so your first one are the professional traits that they want to have. So that positive culture and climate for teachers and staff. And that goes back to your retention and hiring and maintaining your great staff. Recruiting, hiring, supporting, developing, and retaining effective staff. We had some great conversation. I'll share more about that with you in just a second too. And then the third one I really liked, promoting a community of care for your students. And so there's some thoughts around that I think will be helpful that we'll want to look at. The next ones are the personal pieces that the people are really looking for. And you can see that actually the first one is really the number one thing of everything. So being approachable, accessible, and welcoming is a big deal. And that is just what it has to be. Demonstrating ethics and integrity. And then finally following through on tasks and responsibilities. And a lot of that came down to strategic planning and having that long-range vision, whether it be facilities, finance, whatever it happens to be. So it's having those conversations. So when we met with your different groups on your community, we literally took each one of these and posted them all around this room and asked them on a Post-it note as we went through each of those to give their individual ideas of what that would look like and what would the evidence be for this new superintendent. How would you know? And what would you be looking for? And so the reason I like to do that exercise is it actually gets every voice in the room. Not the loudest voice or the squeakiest voice, but everybody participated. And then as the teams met, and some of those people are here tonight, and I'm glad they're here tonight to see this, then they would go through and then they would literally affinitize together what was the most common things they were seeing, and then what were their top 2 for every area. And so I'm going to share with you what their evidence was and what they felt was the most important. And then when we get to the end, you'll see why they're looking at these pieces. So the first one around approachable, accessible, and welcoming. What would that look like for someone, and what would the evidence be? And so as you look at this feedback, think about what that would look like, particularly in a screening question or an interview question. How would we get this information from them? But a big one is visibility and communication skills. And so your superintendent, I love one statement they said, they're the billboard for the community. Your superintendent is, and that really is that's a fact. So that good communication skills and the visibility at student events, but within the community, that's very, very important to your community to have that out there. Staying in touch with retired and senior members is a big deal. 1, they vote. 2, they're vested in your community, and a lot of them have been in your community for a long time. Their children have gone to school here. So that is a big piece. Being genuine, being relationship-focused, and then making strong community partnerships actually came out of your chamber group. And so I know that you're doing a lot of things around real-world learning and those type of things and internships. And so as you build those and having those conversations, what does that look like as you enter and work within your community to build those relationships? So this is the evidence for that. Around demonstrating ethics and integrity, being accountable and transparent was just a big piece. And again, open-minded, safe space for alternative viewpoints, just a high track record. And I think that'll be an interesting piece that we will look at as we look at applicants is what's their track record look like? Where have they been? What have they done? What have they done good? What have they done maybe not so good? And so from an ethical standpoint, I really appreciated this one, particularly coming around just being honest. You know, it's not always good news. Sometimes, most of the time it is, but sometimes it's not. So just be honest about what it is and being transparent about that. And then the next one was around, you got that one, Nick? Sorry about that. Fostering a positive climate and culture for teachers and staff. This is where you see the district's billboard for positivity. That's how it was listed on the statement. But being open and fair, consistent, genuine interest in staff members at all levels of the organization. Developing a viable teacher and staff recognition program. I think this is probably a key piece that I would really want you to be looking at, is what does that look like and what is sustainable and what do you want it to line up to? Do you want it to line up to your comprehensive school improvement plan? Do you want it to line up to your core values? What does that need to line up to, and what does that look like? And how do you do that on a consistent basis? And there are some systems and processes. I think this would be a great question. It's just how do you do that? And what have you done as we think about that? And then holding people accountable always comes into play. It is a matter of this is what I'm doing, what are you doing? And are you going to hold people accountable, whether it's to the curriculum and to just having the wherewithal to making sure that we are consistent within our buildings. From building to building, it shouldn't matter. They're all students here in Green Valley, so they should get the same experiences. And so what does that look like? The next one was, that was the next one, I'm sorry. Competitive pay, I'm sorry, these two almost went together, actually. Recruit, hire, support, retain, and your effective staff members. And so competitive pay, that was big. That one came out on top. You're not surprised by that one. New teacher development, being visible and listening, recruiting diverse staff to reflect your student population came up from each of the groups. Developing Green Valley as a destination district. That was an interesting one from your business community. Just how do you become the place that people want to be at? We want to be here because of how we're treated, how we're paid, but also respected, but also that we feel like we're having purpose in what is happening within your community. And then being creative with positions within the buildings. Is there a different way that we can look at how we staff or how we use our staff or what are options that we have with that? So those are just suggestions that they had. Promoting a community of care for your students, implementing a superintendent student focus group. I've used these in the past and they've been actually very helpful, so setting something like up. So basically listening to your student voice. We talked about this with every group, that your students are your customers. They are the ones that receive the services of the school district. And so to listen, to hear what they say and to give some feedback is important. It's important to hear to all the different stakeholders that you have. Be accountable for learning at all levels. Supporting the whole child came up several times, so making sure it's not just the academics you're looking at, but looking for everything within the students. And then allocating resources, and that's where the board obviously would come in, making sure they had the resources to meet the needs of their students. And then the next one would be the following through on tasks and responsibilities. This was interesting, just what is their personal time management skill and how do they do that? I know Dr. Welly knows quite well that this job can pull you a million different directions at any moment. And so it's a 24/7, 365 job. And so how do you handle that and maintain some sense of personal life as you have that one? Using systems and processes throughout the district came up quite a bit. So for example, what is your process for onboarding new teachers? As board, what is your process for onboarding new board members? Do you have a process? Do you have a system? And those type of things that would be sustainable and repeatable. And that's really what they're talking about on this task and responsibilities piece. Clear communication came up again, delegating responsibilities. So I think one of the hardest things sometimes is to let go and let the people that you've hired do their jobs. And so making sure that happens. And then clearly communicating about bond and construction projects, making sure that comes up. You got some community members that want to make sure that they always know you guys have some things coming up with your elementary school. So just clear to communicating that, having it out. I think this is always interesting because my guess is you're going to have that all over your website, but people will still say to you sometimes it's not been communicated. So it's always just kind of a challenge of what do they consider clear communication. So I'm sure Cameron will do a great job with that. Taking all these things together, really wanted to look what the ideal candidate would look like for Grain Valley. And so we want somebody that's going to be student-centered, a visible and relationship builder who communicates transparency, executes a multi-year vision, develops and retains staff, uses data to improve achievement, partners effectively with the board and the community, stewards budget operations prudently, and ensures safe, inclusive schools with integrity and calm. And I think that piece at the end, that calm, is very important right now. And so this is just some of the words that came from the survey, and we will share all of that with the finalists who have selected all the advice. They will get every bit of that to look at, but this is just a few of those. And you can read through some of those to see what's going on. I think there's some interesting ones on there about just staying focused on what the job is. You get pulled in lots of different directions. There's a lot of political things going on right now that make things challenging, and so staying true to what your mission, your vision, your values are would be the key piece here. And then leading with integrity, showing grace, and building relationships with those that are already here. And so making sure you don't forget what you have and having that out. So what we have coming up next, and we'll talk here in just a second though. So your applications do end on November the 30th, and I'll continue to send you updates. I'm pleased with your apps so far. I think you're doing well, and I know there's some more coming in. On Monday, December the 8th, we will meet and review all the applicants. And so remember, on the Friday on the 5th, I will be sending you out a packet that has all the applicants and a summary for you. One of the things that has changed, just from a legal standpoint, what we told you earlier is that you would have what their current salary is along with their position. In Missouri, we're no longer allowed to ask that question. We can ask what their salary range is, but they're not required to provide that. So that's kind of an interesting little twist. Missouri and Minnesota just joined in that. So it's an interesting piece. And so I couldn't tell you why, but legally that's where we are, so we want you to have that. So we'll review all the candidates and we'll identify who you would like to screen. We will meet again as a team on December the 11th then and look and have those screening interviews, and so we'll have that happening, and then identifying your finalist on December the 16th and having that date. And so then the post-search, of course, happens after that, or communication. So very pleased. I thought your meetings went extremely well. Again, a lot of different voices and a lot of good information for you. And I've got a whole pile of papers that have every sticky note on them. I've kept every one of them. And so if you'd like me to bring those even to the screening meetings, I can do that too, just so you can see them. Be happy to share that. Questions, thoughts, ideas?
How many more applicants do you anticipate?
Somewhere between 3 and 7.
3 and 7 more?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah. Right now, it's not, you guys know, right now, as of this morning, you had 13. So I think you'll end up somewhere around 20, which is a really, really good number.
All right. Any other questions on the process so far or the presentation?
Any thoughts on your feedback or anything along those lines that would be?
I mean, everything that I think, or at least the most part of everything that you presented, I think pretty much sums up Grain Valley. I mean, it's a
That's
pretty
good.
good mix, even with the low turnout on surveys
Mhm.
and some of the other, stakeholder groups. I think it's a pretty good representation of what Grain Valley is.
And I appreciate, and I'll be honest with you, as I look at this, and I as I said earlier, what are opportunities for improvement? I will look at some opportunities for improvement, even on the community groups next time. For the next, whoever I happen to be working with, I would probably ask to have a parent group that we've just set a meeting date with them. It's just hard to get because of the activities with their students and their work and their schedules and things like that. So maybe setting that up would be an opportunity for improvement that I see that we could do better. And so I want to make sure that we're doing better too. And if there's anything else we can do, and again, if you have any candidates you want me to reach out to, please let me know. I've had some of those and had those conversations. And I will continue to have conversations with all your applicants to see what they have going. So I'm excited for you and looking forward to Thanksgiving being done, and then we're going to hit it hard.
All right.
So it'll be good. All right.
Any other questions? All right.
You're so welcome. And the one thing I did want to share, and I will share it again, remember this is a closed search. And so we will talk about that a little bit closer, because closed means closed, not just for MSBA as the search firm, but for the board. So as a team, that is our goal. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we do appreciate that. I want the public to know that the board will take this information and use it. And I will send you, actually on the screening night, on the night that we look at all the applications on December the 8th, we will actually set the screening questions. And I will bring you a set of questions that reflect what we've already heard. And if we're missing something, you can add it at that time too. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great meeting.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the 2025 Education Foundation Program Evaluation. Mr. Vaughn?
Good evening. We sent out, and since I come every 2 years to the board, that helped the packet grow. So I sent you quite a bit of information. And so really just this week is the 16th birthday of the Education Foundation, because 16 years ago is when Dr. Moss hired me. And but actually, for all intents and purposes, the start of the Education Foundation goes back beyond that, back to the mid to late 80s, when Grain Valley was small enough that the Booster Club, the band boosters, and the PTA went together and got a bingo license. And that was when the community center used to be in a little building down on James Rollo Drive across the street from the baseball field. And the building's still there, but it's divided up into 2 or 3 things now anyway. But so anyway, every Friday night we would run a bingo game there. And it was basically 115, 120 people. 100 of them were smoking. 90 of them were chain smoking and lighting their next cigarette off of the last one. So you'd go home and burn your clothes outside on the porch before you went inside and took a shower. But but it did incredible things for the school district. And I want to say in probably 91 or 92, we netted over $70,000. And when the school district is 800 kids, K through 12, $70,000 goes a long way. But then in 92, Missouri approved gambling. In 94, the first casino opened. And by 96, we were out of business. We still had about 80 to 90% of the people coming, but they were spending less and less money. And when we surveyed them, they said, well, because we're going to the boats after we get done playing bingo. And so they were saving money for there. And so finally it went away. But the money that was left, approximately $30,000, was invested at Truman Heartland Community Foundation. And then when Dr. Moss hired me to put together the Education Foundation, that money was turned over to the Education Foundation for our seed money. And that's what we started with. So we started with, I think at that time it was 32,000 and some change. And as of today, the endowment is 504,000. So it's done pretty well. I take none of the credit, but it's done well. I don't know if there are particular things that you want to touch on. I tried to cover the different things that I thought you might want to know and questions that you might have. The dollars aren't going as far as they used to, but then again, none of them do. But, and of course, as we have more and more students, you know, as the classes get bigger, more and more kids are graduating. So the scholarship dollars, you know, trying to find ways to stretch those dollars is certainly important. That's one of the things that a few years ago we got involved with KC Scholars, which was a program started through an endowment from the Kauffman Foundation. And we are able to, we have 2 named scholarships for Grain Valley students where the foundation invests $2,500, makes a commitment of $2,500 a year for 5 years. And the KC Scholars matches that 3 to 1. So it can be a $50,000 scholarship for the student. And we've already had one student, Mackenzie Wagner, go completely through. And we've got another one, I believe, that graduates. And so it's come around again, and we've given that one again. And Bailey Mason, who graduated last year, got that. And but then there's another student that's, I think, in her junior year, Yamiko Chen, I believe is her name, and I think she's in pharmacy school at UMKC. But it enables us to have so much bigger we're not impacting as many students, but we can make a much bigger impact on the particular student that qualifies. We're also trying to do more with Sny Valley Academy, and I know Jill and Ryan had me come and speak to the students this year when they were first starting to meet with them, and trying to emphasize to them that you know, that just getting your Sny Valley Academy certificate isn't the end of the trail by any means, or it doesn't have to be. And so we're trying to encourage them to apply for scholarships, and there are definitely more applying, but then again, over the last 5 years, there's been a couple of years where no one has applied. But it's not really something that they think about, and so trying to get back in front of them and make them aware is important. And in fact, we had a young lady graduated Sny Valley 2 years ago and wanted to become an EMT, and got enrolled in class and everything. She got a scholarship, and then the class got canceled because there weren't enough people signed up for it. And so then she comes back. You could almost see the tears on her email. But you know, is there anything we knew? We go, hey, we're still here. You know, you get in another class, and we'll make it work. So I worked with Aaron in the finance department. We made sure that scholarship money was set aside, and she now came back to me in the last month, and her class starts in January, and we've already sent the money and everything. So we couldn't cover all of her costs, but she was able to carry on with that scholarship. Well, I celebrate her to the other kids coming through Sny Valley, that, you know, that, hey, if she could do it, you know, you guys can too. So very excited, and more people seem very interested in giving scholarships for those kids. You know, the kids that maybe haven't had it as easy by any means. So we're getting more and more involvement with more people endowing scholarships, which is a good thing. And like I said, the overall endowment of the foundation is growing, but those monies are restricted. You know, those monies are set aside for specific things. And that's not unusual over the years in talking with Harrisonville and others. I know they went from being much smaller than we are now to, in 1 year, their endowment went to over $1 million. Well, it was because they had two people. One of them gave them like $600,000 and the other one gave them $300,000. But it was for a specific scholarship. And so, you know, so it's one of those things that looks good on paper, but they can't spend it, you know. And, but on the flip side, that helps to attract other investors as well when they take a look at that. And so, and I know one thing that the board had asked for that I had not presented before, but I think I don't know, did we do it earlier this year, or maybe it was at the end of last school year? And I extended it another year and put it in for you, the income breakdown, to show you where the dollars come from. And for instance, last year, new and additions to the endowment were $98,000. Well, that came from, most of it came from two people, you know. And so it's one of those things that it's wonderful to see and it's wonderful to have, but it really doesn't necessarily let you expand your programs because the money is restricted. It's for a specific thing. But then again, things like that does attract other investors when they see that kind of thing going on. And just over the last 30 days, I know many of you are probably aware of Christian Lanier, who was a recent Grain Valley graduate that got killed in a car wreck there on the North Outer Road, I think in the last year and a half, 2 years. And his mom wanted to start something and everything. And so I worked with her, and so I set up Network for Good is a platform that I use. Like, that's where people register for the golf tournament and things like this, so they can process credit card payments and everything. And so I set up a page there for her, for Christian, because she wants to start giving a scholarship, at least one, if not more. And so I went ahead and got it set up, and I said, well, once you start seeing some money come in, then we'll see about setting up another sub-fund for you underneath the Education Foundation umbrella. And in the past 30 days, she's had 20 donors donate almost $2,000. And so I sent the paperwork to Truman Heartland today to set up the Christian Lanier Legacy Scholarship Sub-Fund and everything. And so that's coming in now. So that's, you know, and you get people, it sometimes takes a while. People will come to you, oh, we really want to start a scholarship. Well, great. When you're ready, you know, I'm here to help you. And then the next time you see them, oh, we really want to start this. Well, let's do it. You know, let's get going. You know, you have to be ready. And then once they do pull the trigger, so to speak, you have to be ready to roll. And so that's what I was able to do with Christian's mother. And we got going, and like I say, within 30 days, there's going to be a Christian Lanier Scholarship given to the outstanding track athlete, because that was an award that the track coaches had started in Christian's honor, but there wasn't any scholarship tied to it. And so when she was telling me about this, I said, well, the Napier Scholarship, the Napier Award has been the award for the outstanding football player, and that goes back to when Marty Napier's mother and father started that, back I think in the mid to late 80s. And then Marty tied a scholarship to it a few years ago. And so Jess goes, yes, that's what we want to do. So now, and she says, and I want to raise enough money so we can give scholarships to other kids as well. You know, so that's where those kind of things grow from. You just never know when it's gonna happen, you need to be there and be ready to be an enabler to make it as easy as possible. So, anyway, yes, sir.
So, since we're on that income sheet that you had, the breakdown sheet,
Yes.
that was one of the questions that I had. You answered one, which was the spike in the new and addition in income in 23, 24. But if you take that anomaly out, it kind of just seems like the new and additional income has just gradually decreased year over year over year outside of that one. What would be the cause for that?
Well, and of course, that is new in additions to endowments. So some of it is, and I'm trying to think how long ago it is that that Harvey and Lois House stopped doing the Run for Rachel that used to take place on Memorial Day weekend. Well, they kept building up the fund for the Rachel House Hudson Memorial Scholarships until they finally stopped doing the Run for Rachel. So that money went away. You know, they were no longer adding to it. But when they stopped, and let's see, look at that last in that. As of today, the Rachel House Hudson scholarship fund stands at $155,000. So that's almost a third of our total endowment.
Mm-hmm.
And it finally got to the point where they said, we're able to do all that we want to do. We don't want to do it anymore. And so that's where that stopped. It really varies because you'll see a spike when somebody wants to start a new scholarship. For instance, 3 of those years, I'll get back to that page. One of the members of my advisory board, Dr. Stephen Beebe, he's the retired communications chair of Texas State University. He's been doing scholarships every year in honor of teachers he had when he was a student at Grain Valley. And so for several years, I've gotten a check from him for $10,000 every year. And he says, I want this one to be, for instance, one is in honor of Moody Murray and Barbara Murray. And then he had done another one before that. And then last year he did one in honor of his parents and the Logeman family and everything. And so that, you know, you get, and back in 23, 24, for instance, that was $32,000 from the Cianciolo family because they've been doing a scholarship every year to build up that fund, and they're stopping the golf tournament because they've built it up as much as they want. Well, right now that fund has $69,000 in it, and a complete blank right now. Our athletic director, Brandon, thank you. Brandon, who is married to a Cianciolo, told me the other day that they're going to move another $30,000. They want to get it up to $100,000. So next year, when we do the 25-26 column, you're going to see a bump again. It's kind of like what Harrisonville ran into, receiving almost $1 million from 2 people at one time. It really kind of distorts, or can distort, what you're seeing, and so that's where you see those large changes is either if somebody gets to a point where they've built their fund up to as big as they want it to be, or else if they're starting a brand new scholarship. And so you can see some variations in that. So, yeah. And you said you had another.
Well, I think that was what I had for that. Does anybody else have any other questions on the report?
I have a question on the report. The VU scholarship, has that continued? Do you think it's effective? Do you know if any students, if it's made a difference in their decision?
The counseling office feels like it is, that it's opening their eyes to a lot more possibilities and looking at schools that maybe they never even thought of. So they might have been thinking of going deeply into debt to a school they're familiar with, but it doesn't necessarily be a good fit other than they know whether they've got a good football team or basketball team. I mean, it can be as simple as that. And I think VUE has made them see that there are many more schools out there, some of which may specialize in a particular program that they may be interested in, and they may be able to go there for little or no money. You know, just because somebody says they're going to give you $10,000 scholarship doesn't mean a whole lot if they're charging you 20. I speak as a parent who sent a son to Baker and as a father who sent a daughter to Colorado State, so out of state. So just because you're getting a scholarship doesn't necessarily mean it helps very much, but so that can have quite an impact. But yeah, I have talked to Nate in the high school counseling center. He feels like it's been very good, and they're trying to promote it even more. I've asked him to come to the advisory board meeting again this year and kind of give us an update.
Okay. Thank you.
It's costing approximately $2,000 a year is what the foundation is paying for us to have access to that. Other questions?
Any other questions on the report tonight?
You might have already covered this, just at a blanket number. How much do you and your team raise a year? Just, it might have been on one of the graphs.
Well, the single biggest fundraiser that we do is the Major Saver discount card. And whereas 23-24 was one of the lowest since we've been here, 24-25 was the biggest we've ever had. And that ends up being split 50-50 between the buildings. So it's primarily the elementary buildings, and then to a lesser extent the middle schools and the early childhood center. But we split the money 50-50.
So that amount of money, 150, 200,
Well, last year was $27,000.
just from the
Major Saver, yeah.
Okay.
And just
then-
to clarify that, so the 27,000, half of that goes to the building, half of that goes to the foundation?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and then the golf event, that's the profit, and that's the profit that stays with the foundation. So there's another $6,000 to $8,000 there. The employee payroll donations obviously is anywhere from $10,000 to $13,000 in a year's time. The stadium advertising has varied from $6,500 down to $5,000 or down to $4,700. So those are the primary sources. And then of course the money that the investments make at Truman Heartland. It either enables us to give more scholarships or to give more classroom grants, or, depending on.
So all in all, the Education Foundation brings in about 150 to 200 a year, give or take?
Yeah,
Like just all in
if you count all of
capital
it,
gains,
yeah,
all
I
of
think
that.
that's real. I
Okay.
think that's realistic.
Okay.
And then again, so much of it for instance, like with the Major Saver card, we bring in 27, but we immediately turn around and give out almost 14. So it's not necessarily money
50%
that.
margins aren't bad, though.
No, no. So it's not necessarily a bad thing by any means, but that's probably a realistic figure by the time you take in the, am I selling candy or Christmas trees or that kind of
Yeah.
stuff? No. It's one person, 20 hours a week. Dr. Welly told me a long time ago, I'm welcome to work more than that. I'm just not going to get paid for more than that. And so,
I feel that.
and so I think those are almost his exact words. But so
Salary.
so
Salary, right?
so anyway, and by the very nature of my job, sometimes of the year I'm busy as all get out.
Oh, yeah.
And other times of the year it is much less. But you never know when the phone's going to ring and somebody wants to give you money or somebody wants to know how to establish a new scholarship or this kind of thing. So and just like Jared's son is a prime example. When I guarantee you, anytime I get a phone call from 3 grade school boys, I'm going to take it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you never know when it's going to turn in to, I mean, the Glow Run this year, and we got that going in a very short period of time and everything, and it netted $3,800 for classroom grants, and the thing is, we had very little time to put together sponsors or anything else like that. But you never know when something like that is going to happen, and so you just have to be ready for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for tonight?
And I know you're thinking, oh my God, how old is he? And and I know you're not able to ask, and so we won't talk about that. But, no. But anyway, and other questions. We are a very unique entity in the foundation world in Greater Kansas City because we're the only one that's a department of the school district. Everyone else is a standalone 501c3, and they may get part of their funding from the school district to help offset the cost of an executive director or staff. But other than that, we are the only education foundation that in the Greater Kansas City area that is a department of the school district. And so it's a unique situation, but it's for us it's been a very good one.
All right, very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that will take us to the 2025 APR report.
Yes, the APR results statewide were released at noon today, and we are pleased to report that our score this year was 92% of points possible, up from 84.7 a year ago. Just to put that in perspective, no other Jackson County school district scored in the 90s this year, and only 2 other KC Metro schools other than us did that feat. So we are really pleased to be in the top 10% of all Missouri school districts. I want to point out to the board, you had the initial cover sheet in your packet for several days. Late in the day today, we added 2 more pages, has a little more details. We didn't expect you to have read that ahead of time, but we wanted you to have it in front of you tonight. And certainly, I'll give Dr. Allen a chance to say a few things about APR and certainly answer any questions that the board has tonight.
Yeah, just like Dr. Welly said, we're very excited. Our continuous improvement is 30% of our score, and our performance is 70% of our score. that 30% continuous improvement is the part that I say we have control over. And I use that term sort of loosely, but it is what we're aiming for 100% on. And we did fall slightly short with attendance, but we have a lot of efforts that we're working towards this year, as well as with some of our CCR assessments at the high school, just making sure every student is taking the right assessment that meets their needs, that would also align with the score that we're looking for. So we're getting really close to where we want to be on continuous improvement. Performance is where we always get a little bit surprised, even when the results come out in July and we see how our students do. That'll account for the performance, but the growth scores are what's, we don't really know until this information comes out. So we felt good about where we were. We just didn't know how good we felt until it officially gets released, because we need the state's magic algorithm to figure out the student growth numbers. So it came out better than we anticipated this year, which is really exciting. So now, after the excitement wanes, we will continue on trying to maintain at this point, because maintaining high amount of growth is a difficult task, but our team's up for it, so we're excited.
All right.
That is a huge congratulations to all the work and all the things that everyone is doing. That's really started with the curriculum and how that has gone, and then how that feeds into everything else. Like, this is no short feat. Sure, you could say there's room for improvement on some of those, but holy cow, this is impressive, and that is a testament to the leadership. That is awesome.
Yeah, I think to second that, getting from 84 to 92, that's quite a jump. So, yeah, a lot of work went into that, and it shows. So, thanks for everybody that worked on that, all the staff, everybody that has put their time and effort into making that happen. Any other questions about the report?
So this may require an offline conversation just to educate me on what I'm seeing here. It's a lot of numbers. Congratulations, great work. I'm just really trying to connect the dots of what this really means. I mean, it means we're doing an excellent job educating children. Does this impact funding or any other levers, or is it really strictly just that one lane?
It really just speaks to our accreditation as a school district. But in my mind and the way that I even explain it, I was speaking to NHS students the other day, and I couldn't reveal what our score was because it was embargoed still, but I thanked them because they're just an equal contributing partner to our success, and was talking to them about it. How I see the chain reaction happening is that the better score or report card that our school district gets, the more of a destination district that we become, to use some words from earlier tonight, which drives people here, which gives us the best teachers, which gives us a higher population and more businesses. So really it just contributes to, we've talked, I think, as a board earlier about, how do you get people to find you on the internet and find that you're a great school, and really the state report card is one of the best ways to do that. So it's exciting for me in the prospect of bringing in teachers, families, etc.
So I haven't sat in on very many of the DESE Jeff City meetings recently, but I know last time I was sitting in on them, MSEP 6 was getting ready to be reprocessed, and they were going to start generating MSEP 7 or whatever that next set of standards is. So that is probably going to start rolling out in maybe 2 years, probably. Would that be about right? Whatever that next set of standards is.
We piloted cycle 1 last year, and so actual cycle 1 starting this year, I feel like we're probably a few years out from
Okay.
that. Based on what they're saying now and what they are very vague when they present to us, they're not anticipating major changes to our accountability for our APR. But again, we'll wait and see. We've seen changes even since they initially rolled this out to when we've actually started implementing it. So we do get a little update when we go to our DESI conference every July with sort of what they're thinking towards with MSIP 7, and I feel like that'll get more accurate each summer. So we do stay on top of that so we can anticipate those moves, so we don't start sort of behind the.
So it sounds like it's a ways off. So we were able to continue on with what we're currently doing with, you know, not needing a lot of change. That's what I was really going at.
Yeah,
is-
yeah, I feel very confident in that, and really just in the direction that we're moving instructionally as a whole. I feel like our decades worth of research that are not going to, you know, that's nothing fad, it's nothing super innovative either, but it's just tried and true and evidence based. So I feel good about the direction we're heading, no matter what comes from the state.
All right, very good. Any other questions on the report, Mr. Williams?
I just have a quick question on, I don't know who would be best this to be directed to, but this is obviously a good thing for our community, our school district. How do we leverage this? What do we do to put this out there, or is it just something that automatically goes out, or is there something that we can control in ways to be able to help make us look good?
Well, a lot of times for us to get good news out, we have to initiate the conversations. And today I was really excited to see that I had the Examiner calling me just before noon because the press gets these results ahead of time, just like we do. And they all manage to do a good job of keeping it embargoed. So they wanted to know how we felt about the results that we had, and it gave us the opportunity to be quoted about some of the things I shared tonight. So we'll be featured in the Examiner. Our local newspaper, the Green Valley News, does a great job of coverage for us. So they were on social media with us breaking the story the same time we were trying to break our own story today. So I would say and Cameron, this will be in her report, I'm sure, next month, but the number of shares I was seeing on our announcement on Facebook today just was a very quick, strong reflection of how proud people are because our Facebook posts, you know, grandma will share when the grandchild is featured, right? So there's always shares on our Facebook pages, but we were getting dozens in the first hour of the news. So the community was seeing it, they were sharing it. I was able to look to see who was sharing it. We had teachers that were just beaming with pride, sharing it on their personal Facebook pages. And the more shares that gets, the more traction it gets. So yeah, it'll catch on. Other area school leaders were texting each other today, and I was on the receiving end of some of those. Dr. Allen was at a workshop with other district leaders, and I don't know that she got applause and a standing ovation, but people were noticing that Grain Valley topped the charts on this one. So yeah, we're gonna, you know, these things don't always last. Like, you don't get to be on top very long usually, not alone, but we're gonna make the most of it while we're there. Yeah. Dr. Allen, do you have
You don't want to do too much in your best year ever. You know, I mean, it's a balance, you know, because you never know what the next year will bring. But like I said, certainly from it lives as part of it's required to be part of our website. So when families do look for us, and then just having other district leaders talk, like I said, I love that from a recruitment and retention standpoint for staff as well. But I do think it'll continue to grow as, for example, Mr. Myers, his professional development for his teachers during their plan time tomorrow is around APR. So like the more teachers talk, then they'll start sharing with students about what a great job they did and what that does for our school. So I mean, it just takes several days really to get it through the buildings, and then the kids go home and are excited to tell parents about how well they did. I mean, even our high schoolers who, you know, how many tests they've taken by junior and senior year being part of NHS were beaming with pride, like, wow, we're going to be top dogs around here. You know, I mean, they get excited for it. So I do think word will continue to spread just naturally too.
And we do try to, the number 92 doesn't really have any meaning in and of itself. So, with our messaging that we've put out, we're trying to frame it as, hey, no one else in the county scored like this. Top 10% in over 500 Missouri districts is kind of a big deal. So that, I think that is going to resonate with people more than 92. But thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the APR report? All right. That will take us to unfinished business, and we'll start with the annual priorities progress.
Very good. This is the time of year that we bring around our first round of progress reporting for the board. We have 3 priorities this year associated with, we're in year 5 of our 5-year CSIP strategic plan. So I'm going to draw your attention in your packet to page 3. And this is priority 1, which is refining student feedback practices. We had 4 different measures that we are looking at that we want to achieve by the end of the year. And then you have the November update information at the bottom, and the numbers down below correspond with the 4 measures. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Allen to give a quick update on number 1, and she'll move right into number 2. And the priority number 3, Dr. Gooch is going to take the lead on that one for us with facilities. Dr. Allen?
So with our priority 1, there are 4 fairly distinct separate measures on here. And I know you can read the November update, so I'll try to kind of add to that. But on number 1, which is centered around our curriculum development, if you recall, when we started this effort, we were like less than or around 10% of curriculum written and completed. We're hovering, and this doesn't include board approval because we've got some courses pending and waiting, but we're at about 55%. So we've crossed the halfway threshold with creation of curriculum, which we feel good about. Everything's not perfect. We will come back and refine over time, but that's a huge measure. And so we're kind of following the timeline that we wanted to be following in order to achieve our goals, so we feel good about that. On number 2, it's really around clear and transparent grading practices at all levels. Our first focus was really at the elementary level with revamping the grade card. The best way we can get feedback on that was from parent-teacher conferences, and elementary teachers said that they felt the most confident that they felt in going through grade cards with parents, that they felt like they could clearly explain where their student was and why and where they're headed. So we feel pretty good about the revisions that are made there. We are continuing to make updates and changes to our proficiency scales, K-12, and that effort towards our improved proficiency scales in middle and high, which is what's going to help also clarify and improve our grading and reporting practices through means like PowerSchool, but as well as giving students feedback. So we're continuing on that effort with middle and high. Have quite a ways to go, but we've got a lot of the year left too. On number 3, we're looking at really delivering professional development to certified staff on delivering specific, actionable, and student-centered feedback. We all started as an admin team with the same professional development at the beginning of the school year, but at this point we are participating in 1 of 2 chosen book studies, and we're participating in activities as an admin team, and then they're taking those activities and creating sort of bite-sized PD for their building as they can work into their collab times back at the building level. And so I feel good about our progress there. It looks a little different in each building when they have time and ability to do that, but we continue to come back together and do check-ins about where we are and what we've shared and how far we've gotten. And I will say, when Dr. Welly and I have done some routings, we've heard from staff about their focus on feedback this year. So I mean, I feel like that word's resonating through staff, that they're receiving the professional development that we're developing. And, you know, it's based on works of Guskey and Marzano and Schmoker and evidence-based practices. So I feel good about the progress we're making, but we'll continue to do that the remainder of the year as well. And then the last piece is really being more intentional with our chronic absentee meetings. So they are kind of our cabinets at each at school, we'll meet with family school liaisons, counselors, administrators to review chronic absenteeism, but we're trying to make a closer tie to academics with that this year, and specifically at the elementary level, any students who have RSPs who are also chronically absent. So part of their attendance plan isn't only focused on getting them to school, which is of course a huge part of it, but also on what additional interventions or supports can we provide, because as long as they're gone, we're not going to be catching those students up as readers. So it's just putting a little bit more of an academic focus on their attendance plan and being more intentional with meeting that academic or reading goal alongside getting them to school and removing any barriers keeping them from school. So we feel like that's going well, but something we'll continue to monitor all year as well. You want to take any questions on that first one before I go on? Yeah.
On, especially, I guess, on the last one with the, the absenteeism, it seems like, based on reviewing the previous reports, I mean, the numbers of attendance has been higher this year than it has been in years past. Can you attribute that to just the different things you're doing, or just culture in the schools, or is there anything you can tie it to yet?
I don't want to jinx things. I always, I would say we're still at the beginning of the year too. So I feel really good about where we are, and I feel like our practices and our systems are falling into place. Like we're doing a good job of developing systems that are going to keep us from, skipping a week or missing a student. But I'll feel a lot more like celebrating when we hit closer to after winter towards springtime, and we're still maintaining at the rate we are right now. So I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess. So then on priority 2 is really centered around behavior. As we heard again from the presentation tonight, behavior's been a major focus for us post-COVID, but our feedback from teachers are what we're doing is working, and they're really happy with the progress, and our incidences are going down. And so both anecdotally and from data, we feel good about where we're going, but we're going to keep going. So as you know, last year we added in Tier 1 support, sort of character education at all levels, to help develop character traits in all students. And then at the elementary level, we had started some small groups because their character education program comes with some small group work that'll help if a student's missing a specific skill, or a group of students are all missing the ability to be responsible. For example, they could do a lesson and work on that skill. They've added to that this year, and now they're really looking at those students within the small group who don't maybe know how to do that skill, but also are struggling to apply it in other situations. So like in the moment at a small group, they can say, yes, this was what it means to be responsible, but then they can't apply it to actually be responsible. So they're doing more one-on-one work with those students. And the one-on-one work looks a little different in each elementary. A couple of our elementaries, it's done by the classroom teacher. In other elementary schools, we have some specialist teachers that'll push in to assist with that. But that is happening in all of the buildings, and that's just an additional layer of trying to teach those skills for elementary students early, that we think will benefit them in the long run. So that is going well, and we're continuing to review and meet with teams about, basically, is this sustainable? Like, are we doing okay with providing the amount of support that's needed? And do we feel like it's working? Then in middle school, they are working on creating a Tier 2 intervention menu that basically would match students' needs with an intervention that would be provided for them. What they started with at the beginning of the year is the students have taken their SABRS once, which is basically a screening that the student takes about how they feel they're doing, and then the teacher also completes it, and you compare the two. And then anybody who's seems at risk, meaning either the kids self-identify that they're at risk or the teachers identify them at risk, they've got an intervention that they're providing to provide support, and that would be on missing skills, just like the elementary level. The skills are just a little bit different. So right now they've got sort of a list of interventions, and they've evaluated SABRS data, but their hope is to eventually create a menu that kind of connects this missing skill. Here's the interventions for it. These missing, the ones that work. So they're still working on that, but adequate progress, I feel like, is being made on that as well. And then the third one, right now, we kicked off the year kind of focusing on working with equal opportunity schools, mainly because it's easy and it's a free process, which is what they'll do is I can send over sort of not identifiable information, but our data from the high school about our students who take advanced placement courses. And they're currently working on evaluating our data and doing what they call a gap analysis. And basically they're looking for any, even though there's no student names on it, they can identify based on our demographics and the information they have on our students as sort of unidentified individuals, if we're missing opportunities, especially within certain subgroups, to push students into advanced coursework. And so they are working on that data right now. That's been sent to them. Because our high school tends to be our most diverse school, like I said, this is sort of like a bonus to number 3. It doesn't necessarily speak to training for team members, but we do feel like that they could lead to that based on what the results show us. I think it'll be a good measure of how well we're doing to partner with every single subgroup and get students pushed to the level of high expectation that they need. And then in the meantime, I've been working with surrounding school districts and I've talked to multiple school districts about who they've potentially used for training for team members, and I've gotten some really good recommendations and some don't do these recommendations. And working with some of the possibilities, as I start to research, I'm kind of eager to see what happens, the outcome of this board meeting, because on our agenda is talking about strategic planning. And so I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go off of the wording and the community and team member desires from our last strategic plan because there's really just a statement on there, or how's that going to evolve and what's that going to look like by, say, February if we go through a strategic planning. So just trying to identify the right match for our community and our team and what they're wanting. So I feel like by the next time we do an update, I'll have that information and know where we're headed, and that'll help me better identify maybe the right partner for us or a recommendation. If that makes sense.
I assume on your middle school for the Sabres, is the teacher that's doing it the one for the homeroom?
Yes.
And then is there a way, or are there ideas that the elective teachers get to jump? I think that's probably maybe an elementary and a middle, like in helping assess or helping with that tier 2, or what are I'm just curious on some of their roles and how they play into this, because I'm sure they can complement it in many ways, but I was just curious.
They're deeply embedded at the elementary. Because this happens during a time when they don't have students, they push into classes, they provide small group. It looks a little different, different elementaries have different number of sections and it looks a little different, but they're deeply embedded at the elementary. I would say at middle school, how their involvement comes is on the intervention side. So while they're not filling out that survey on a student, because a lot of our elective teachers at the middle level will only have a student for a quarter and then not have them again until the next year or again. The information provided by the team when they decide on a particular student needs a particular intervention, that's when they're looped in, because they will be part of, if we're trying to work on a skill with a student, that everybody who has that student needs to know that skill they're working on. If that makes sense.
Yeah. On number 2, it looked like we had $65,000 budget up to $64,950 so far. Are we good there?
Yeah, really, this was a tough one to break down a budget because we do more than what's listed here. Like, we're still paying for our character education for tier 1, but that's not really stated in. So I couldn't decide exactly what to put in here, I'll be honest. But what this accounts for is Character Strong, because it provides the tier 2 curriculum, if you will. And then we also have some BIST behavior support that's worked into here, and we had several buildings that chose to do 2 days a month instead of 1, which upped my original budget, but all of that comes out of our Children's Services Fund. So we're still okay. I basically, last year when we had Children's Services Fund, it covered some sub-expenses to pull out to do PD, and we're not utilizing that this year. Instead, we're paying for BIS. So, I mean, it's all kind of evened out with our grant. So.
And then you're paid out for the year. This won't, like, your costs aren't going to double for the second half of the year.
Correct. I'm done. We've paid for the curriculum for the year and the behavior support for the year. It's all contracted out, so we're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to, real quick, I don't know if this is a question or an observation. It is hard for me to kind of follow some of this not being an educator. It would be really helpful if you had a couple of like real life examples
Okay.
that you could that you could walk through in next time we talk about this, just to really
Sure.
help me, I guess, just to illustrate what is really happening here and how it's improving. So
Absolutely.
if that's possible, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Any other questions on number 2? All right, Dr. Gooch?
Mr. English,
Oh.
just specifically on priority 2, or something on for the first one too.
Well, really, I think,
Any?
I'm just really
Okay.
trying to,
Sure.
where the rubber meets the road. I want to know how what we're doing is really impacting and you're talking through it, but it's not helping me really understand where the rubber meets the road. So
Okay.
that's what I'm wanting, is more of like a real life. We had this situation, obviously no names or anything, but we've had these situations,
Okay.
and this is the result based on the work that we've done.
Sure.
That sort of
Yeah.
approach.
Okay, thank you.
Add is like how many kids we've identified for each tier, and then like our I'm sure there's some amount of pre and post data that like before intervention and after intervention.
Yeah.
And so then saying, okay, these kids are probably that 80% of kids that tier 1 is appropriate. And then I think that would help too, the number of kids we're servicing, and then kind of give.
Yeah, I mean, we already track all that, so that'd be, like we've
Right,
got
so then the pre
41
and
tier 3
post.
kids right now as a
Right.
district, and I could tell you what that means. And yeah, we've got all that, so that's easy. Sure. Absolutely.
All right. Dr. Gooch, number 3?
Yeah, thank you. So priority number 3 is going to be centered basically around planning for appropriate facilities for academic and extracurricular needs of our students, also discussing safety in mind. So our update right now is going to be based around, I will just tell you, we've had numerous meetings with Hollis and Miller. Our architects have come in and initially started the meetings with the special education department to start talking about space standards and really how to improve the overall facilities and classrooms for our special education programs, especially for our high needs population. And so they have met with a team of individuals from the special education department and heard kind of what their hopes and dreams are for an expansion project, not only at Matthews, but are there other needs that we have at other elementary facilities as well. And so those meetings have taken place, and then Hollis and Miller continues to come back and have additional meetings with the Matthews Elementary people there to talk about similar types of discussions. What are Matthews Elementary's specific needs related to facilities? Overall, not just only classroom facilities, but just learning spaces, overall needs that they have at their specific building, and then in addition to that, taking a look at the facilities that they have to support the education, other parts of the facility, like special classrooms, for example, like PE, things like that, and then also having conversations about traffic flow, and so just really the overall facilities needs that we have at Matthews as we work towards a potential April 26 bond that would address a lot of the the needs that we have at Matthews Elementary. I will say that I will say that on Tuesday, during the non-student day, we did have the group came in and did a LiDAR 3D scan. They were able to get that done all in one setting, and so we now have really a 3D image. If you've ever looked at houses or anything, it's that Matterport that has been developed for a school, which, I mean, I've seen a lot of those when, looking at homes or things like that, but it's really interesting to see it when you're looking basically top down of an entire school without a roof, and just kind of see how the building has laid itself out and really how it functions, but then also comparing it from that regard. When you're in it, it feels one way, but then when you're looking at it from that type of image and how it compares to our other elementary schools and the functionality and where programs are and things like that, it really kind of starts to let you see just how unique Matthews Elementary really is, and where we could really work to make some improvements there in that building. So they were able to do that, which has been excellent, and it even kind of shows the outside of our facilities as well. Now, it does not show the next part of the update, which is you are all very much aware that we have recently closed on the 3 additional parcels of land that are adjacent to the east and to the west of Matthews Elementary, and so the LiDAR scan does not. It was not part of that. Quite frankly, for one of the properties still has tenants in it, so we didn't want to ask them to vacate that property for the day. But so we're working to with just really what we have right now and taking a look at our current facilities, and then we will the expansion of like what the new parcels will do to that particular school. So and then as we have back to kind of number one there a little bit, but we, in addition to having the conversations with the special education department about Matthews Elementary and the needs that we have there to, just ensure that we have the adequate space and adequate stuff for our high needs special education classrooms. But then the discussion moved on to, all right, now that we're considering, what are the needs at Matthews, but if we are able to expand Matthews and make improvements in that facility, then making sure that we have consistency across all 4 schools. And so what are the needs that we would specifically need to address at a Sniabar or a Stony Point, another school on the south side of I-70 that would allow our special education programming to be equal across all 4 elementary schools. And so that allowed us to have some additional discussions with our special education department, making sure that we are able to meet the needs of not only the Matthews students, but then also what else needs to be done at the other elementary schools, and which one in particular has our highest needs, and what are some of the capabilities, and what are some potential things we could do to add some space at the other schools. And then coming up, we're actually getting ready to have an evaluation, a site evaluation of the North Middle School complex, and a lot of the property that is to the east and to the north of North Middle School, to do a site survey to kind of really start to understand where the best location for our athletic facility would be. So they're going to come in and they'll evaluate, the slopes and the terrain and all that, and just start to put together, the best layout for a middle school athletic expansion that would happen at the North Middle School campus. And that site survey is scheduled to be done by the end of the calendar year, so by December. And then really the last thing, and we've started working on this, and we will be able to bring this back to the school board by December, but we are working on developing the bond ballot language that would then be put out for the voters, and making sure that everything that we put in the language is clearly articulated and really kind of it grasps everything that we're planning to do within this bond project. I will say one thing that has not been necessarily updated, but will be something in the bond language. So this really isn't, but it is a November update. Is when you look at priority number 3 and we talk about improvements to our facilities, there is with improved safety in mind. And so in a future update, once we start talking about security improvements to our schools as well, that'll be something we bring forward a little bit later. But I will say that is something that is going to be in the language, in addition to the improvements at Matthews, the improvements at all of our potential facilities, including outdoor athletic facilities. However, you'll see in there is language that talks specifically about security and stuff. So we just don't necessarily have any true update to that quite yet. But we are continuing to work with Hollis and Miller, and they have dialogue back and forth with our construction management company to start to understand, and start to frame what we would like to do as far as safety enhancements at all of our schools as well. So with that, I'll take other questions.
All right. Any questions on priority number 3?
Mike, there's a lot there, a
Yep.
lot being done, but no dollars spent.
So it's funny you say that. We just got our very first invoice. So the budgeted amount has to do with, part of the budgeted amount goes to Hollis and Miller, and the other part is later down the road for the pre-construction work that we'll do with our construction management company. And Hollis and Miller has just invoiced me for half of their first payment, or half of their payment. So that actually has come in within the last day or two, maybe, or after this was given to you guys in your packet. So by the time the next, I would expect by the time that the next update comes along, you will see most likely all of Hollis and Miller being paid for by then. So yeah, we're doing a lot of work, and it isn't really free. They just hadn't invoiced us quite yet. So, yep.
All right. And with the construction manager, I'm assuming we're moving with Newkirk Novak again on this project.
That is correct. Yes.
All right. Any other questions on priority number 3 for the time being? All right. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that will take us to new business. Preview the draft ballot language for the April 2026 bond issue.
Yeah, we rely on LJ Hart to craft this, any statement that goes on the ballot, and it's written in the form of a question. It's it follows its own writing style. So it is the longest run-on question you will read. And what we try to do in a ballot language, and for this group, we lead with the ballot language, but we don't campaign on the ballot language. So when we tell our story all spring, we're not talking ballot language. There will be people who will know that they're voting on a bond issue for us for the first time when they go in the ballot box. But if that is widespread, that's not going to be good for us. So this does have to be worded in a certain way. We try to strike a balance between being big picture enough to give us a little flexibility, because the reality is on a $40 million bond issue, things can happen, and we know what we intend to do, but we don't necessarily get every little thing done. And sometimes we get more things done than we could ever want to list on a ballot question that is already several lines long and it's one sentence. But we balance that with, we want enough specificity that when Matthews in a couple of years, somebody drives by and they're like, whoa, that has a whole different look to it. I thought we were putting in some classrooms and some bathrooms. So you want the ballot language to have enough specificity to get a scale that, okay, we're asking for $40 million, and by what I read, I can tell a lot of that's going to Matthews. So this isn't a place to break it down. This isn't a place for spreadsheets, but it is written in a certain way. So, shall the Board of Education of the Grain Valley R5 School District, Missouri, without an estimated increase in the current debt service property tax levy, borrow money in the amount of $40 million for the purpose of providing funds to make construction and renovation improvements to Matthews Elementary, including but not limited to additional classrooms, restrooms, parking, improved traffic flow, and a new gymnasium. to construct, equip, and furnish additional classrooms, either standard or high needs special education, at other elementary school or schools, to provide district-wide security upgrades, to construct middle school outdoor athletic facilities, to pay off a lease financing, and to the extent funds are available, complete other repairs and improvements to existing facilities of the district, and issue a general obligation bonds for the payment thereof. So, and again, we follow it with the statement, if this proposition is approved, the adjusted debt service levy of the school district is estimated to remain unchanged at $1.30 per $100,000 of assessed valuation of real and personal property. So, this is where we are today. If we were running under normal circumstances, we think we would be ready for this to be an action item in December. I will say there are some nuances with the county that we will bring this back in December, and we may even list it as an action item. But if there are any things that are up in the air that could affect our bonding capacity come April, we may take advantage of the time we have to actually have you take a vote on this in January. It needs to be submitted by the end of January to make the April ballot. And we'll know more. We'll report back to the board in December at your business meeting, the latest that we know about Jackson County, and we have a new interim executive for the county, and he's made it pretty clear what he intends to do, and some of the details are getting sorted out so that we can understand the implications from both an operating budget standpoint and also our bonding capacity for the spring. So we want to advocate for the school district in that process, but we also don't want to get too far over our skis on making commitments about ballot language and then worrying about having to change that ballot language once it's been submitted. So, but we would entertain any questions or feedback you have on this ballot language.
Point of clarification, the levy would remain unchanged at $1.30 per $100, not $100,000.
Did I say 1,000?
Just
Yeah,
as
let's-
a point of correction.
Yeah, we want to. I was going to say. Yeah, I don't think. I don't think the way I stated it was going to help us get that paid off real well.
So I pretty well aware of what we've been trying to accomplish just over the last several months. So this isn't anything new to me, but I will say that when I read it, it did not resonate. It's almost, I don't know if it's too vague or too
Specifically to
specific.
Matthews?
I'm not, well, I just think there's so much in there that what sticks out at me is $40 million for bathrooms. So I don't know how you make this more clear, how they make it more clear for you. And I'm just, just one person, but kind of knowing really what we're trying to accomplish and reading this, I didn't feel like this made me comfortable. And I heard what you said about, you don't
Right.
campaign on this, you'll campaign separately and get the word out. But if I were just reading this, I would probably vote no, just based on what I'm reading here.
Mr. English.
You don't want that, so.
No. Okay,
All right.
appreciate that.
Any other
I
questions?
do hope
or
you vote
comments?
yes, but. Yeah.
Great, but look at all the other pieces that are so much more important.
Yeah,
Because by the time a voter gets to the fifth line of this, they may have just got stuck at Rustford.
yeah, they probably made their decision.
Can they rework the priority of what that is?
Okay. Yeah, it may be the way we frame the work at Matthews, because Matthews is half the project. But I do think restrooms is distracting. Like, that's helpful for Matthews students and families to understand, but it may not be necessary. but just that there will be a significant addition and renovation work at Matthews. And in the weeks ahead, we'll know more about what we can and can't do for the budget. And then maybe it'll help us pin this down a little better.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, that and I get a lot of feedback around the athletic stuff up north just because, I'm on the north side. So
Yeah.
I think if you pull those two things out, assuming that we can really do both of those things, then I think you're better off than, again, listing restrooms as
Okay.
the primary thing.
Improved traffic flow at Matthews might get the entire community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lead
Leaving
with
it.
that. All right, any other comments or questions on the draft ballot language?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next item is the CSIP strategic planning proposal.
So we do ask the board to consider engaging our community in a new CSIP strategic plan. We are in our 5th year of a 5-year plan. It would be my recommendation to bring back our facilitator that we have used previously. I think he would do an excellent job hitting the ground running in getting our community engaged in the process. I will say that since we did this the last time, there are more and more districts that are engaging a 3-year plan versus a 5-year plan. So we wouldn't have to make that decision up front. Sometimes, when you're engaging stakeholders in the district that we want to be in the future, sometimes the things that come out of it kind of tell us this is what we can do in 3 years versus maybe we need 5 years for some of these things. The other piece that I have seen and Dr. Daniel has affirmed is it is not uncommon for school districts to take this on in their transition year with a new superintendent. So they would invite the new superintendent to come be present and for the stakeholders to start to get used to seeing the superintendent around. And of course, your existing superintendent would be in the room as well. But you have an outside facilitator that handles all the process and moving things along. School board members would certainly be invited to attend those stakeholder sessions as well. And in fact, I think would probably have an intentional conversation about your role where you kind of talk that out yourselves as a group, because again, that's not uncommon either for board members to go and be a part of that process either. So what you have in front of you is just kind of an outline. There would be stakeholder surveys. This could happen maybe as soon as January. I will say we would not, although we would lock in to work with him and to secure his services so that he can protect some time for us. This is all contingent on your timeline for naming new superintendent. So we would not want to actually start putting out surveys in January until we know that we had everything in place. And then when we set a calendar for stakeholder events, we consider the availability of our new superintendent as well to come be a part of that. So I don't want to pitch that that's important for it to happen and then schedule nights that are in conflict with our new leader's schedule. So this is not an action item tonight. It's really just more for discussion. If anybody had any strong views one way or another about the timing. I know it's hard to plan the next thing when you're focused where you ought to be, which is on, the search. The search itself is the most important thing, but contingent on the whole process sorting out in the timeline that you've set, I would entertain any questions on this or, if the board wants to discuss it, what you think you ought to do.
I definitely appreciate the foresight and guidance on that. I think that naturally makes sense. So I would be in support and agree. I was a community member parent when we went through this last time and one of the participants in their process. And it was very enjoyable and felt super collaborative. And the way they did it, I think really got all voices in the room. There was a lot of small group and then bringing it to the big group. So I appreciated the process a lot. Obviously, that's the only one I've been through, so I don't know how anybody else would do it.
They talked about important things. There were
They-
tough conversations.
They really did, and they and able to, yeah, really pointed out a lot of very good information, and it built each time too. So every time we came back, it felt like we were moving forward on something, and like the information that was gathered, something happened to it, and then something else was then we were taking the next step. So the progression through that felt pretty valuable too. We weren't just sitting in a room and talking and then they went off and did whatever they wanted to do anyways. Like all that input was very much received and then put into the exact plan that we still review now. So just my experience that it was appreciated.
So, based on your experience, it sounds like you're engaged and were a part of the process. Was there a drop off from the different groups? I mean, that you could see everybody that initially started the process, did they complete the process or did they lose some throughout?
Yeah, it was pretty full. The one
We
thing
had a lot of meetings too. Like,
one
I
thing
felt-
we did have to manage that looked a little different. We opened it up. So a lot of communities that he works with, they have targeted invitations. They want to make sure they have a variety of stakeholders, but we just opened it up and we invited the entire community. Anybody who wants to sign up can sign up for this. We had 60 people that were regularly in attendance. And we also promote that we want students of a certain age to come be a part of it as well. And we had so many students, and we had students in the previous one 5 years before that. And actually, what we noticed was with some of our younger students, they were really engaged one session, but to stay engaged for 3 sessions of this, it was not their jam. And so we adapted this last time, and we had so many kids that we asked each family to just bring your kid one time. That way we had 60 people in the room, we could be productive, and every time kids came, they were engaged, and it was one and done, but we got to hear everything they had to say that night, and that worked out beautifully. So we had a lot of interest and a lot of input.
Yeah, I was impressed. The room was as full as it was each meeting.
All right. Any other questions on the planning proposal for now? So I was looking at the pricing and there was pretty big range. And then also said that we'd get our multi-year usage discount. So
I hadn't asked him what that is yet,
Okay.
but yes. And based on his range, I mean, I estimated it at 20,000, but yeah, I hadn't asked him about the discount, so I'm sure that we're
so
we're in
around
the-
20,000 is what we should
That should be the
probably
max.
budget all
Yeah,
in.
that would be the max. That would probably include travel expenses, which isn't much for him. He's actually in the area.
He said not to exceed 2,500, so. All right. 2,500 for the
Just for the
expenses.
travel, because
Yeah,
he's fairly local.
20,000 all in for everything or less would be what
So-
I'd look at.
I can let him know that, you know, we'd want our plan. We'd want to know what he's going to do for us, and I can bring that, list that as an action item in December. And if the board is ready at that point and you like what you see, then it would give it as an opportunity for you to take action.
So when we're making that commitment, are we committing to a 3, 4, or 5 year plan at that point, or is that something that gets committed to during the process?
It would be during the process. It's completely flexible.
Okay. I would be curious to
His-
administrator and staff input as to what they think
Yeah.
is feasible. I mean, changing a plan
Right.
every 3 years seems like a lot, but at the same time, you could have a lot that changes in 3 years. So I can see both sides of it.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I'll highlight this year's plan. There are some aspects of our plan now that I'm glad took 5 years, but there are other things that we've already moved beyond what we said we were going to do. I look at some of the academic and behavior things we're doing now. We couldn't have envisioned those things 5 years ago. So we're kind of building on the spirit of of what we did as a 5-year plan, even though we're already kind of moving past. I wouldn't want to wait 6 years, but I think once, and I think the board will have a sense of it as well. Once you start getting the reporting of what's being generated from the community and what we're recommending in terms of how ambitious, how big we're dreaming, you'll have a sense of either, well, we really ought to move that up to 3 years, or I don't see how we can get that done. The scariest thing in our last 5-year plan is what came out of it was a commitment that we were going to have competitive pay in the metro. And I looked at the superintendent at the time and I said, good luck. Because really we had no idea how to get competitive. That was the scariest thing that came out of it. And 2 or 3 years later, then we're putting a levy before our voters. And, now that's a moving target. Like, you catch up and then it slowly drifts away. But, that was the scariest thing we've taken on in a CSIP, where we're like, well, we know we need to do this. The community is behind it. But we don't know if we can get it done in the first try. So that's also a big accomplishment that we were able to do that. And I would say if we hadn't engaged those 60 stakeholders that night, or that series of nights in that winter, that planted a lot of seeds. That created a lot of buzz for us to be able to then put a levy. I will just say, I think it led to some board campaigns where it was universal throughout board campaigning that we need to pay our teachers better. And then that led to in another year or two to us to be able to frame a levy that were able to do what we did. So this process does make a difference, and we might think that we know where the community wants to be in 5 years, but you don't know until you ask them. And I think every time that the school district engages in this, people are going to realize this is the time to be heard. This is the time to come be at the table, because the other thing it does for you, and in my position, it just takes one new person to move to town to have an idea of how you ought to do your district different. And it's real nice to be able to say, listen, we've engaged the community. We have a 5-year plan. We're going to stick to the plan. And so there's a lot of power in having that plan locked in place, and the board sets that plan. It's the board that in the spring would endorse, this is our 5-year plan. So we'll bring that back next month, and we'll have some more specificity on it from our facilitator.
All right, very good. The next item is going to be an action item. It's going to be looking to approve the curriculum committee roster. So I'd look for a motion to approve the curriculum committee. All right. Any discussion on this item? We are adding a name, and it's my wife, so I won't be voting.
Do you need I'm not volunteering myself, but Dr. Taylor, do you need a replacement since Aaron's gone, or is that just kind of does the vacant seat? No, I'm not. Seriously, I was just, and I don't even know anybody. I was just pointing out that he's gone and maybe he's needed.
Having representation.
But you're still on. Okay. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion on that item? Okay. We will do a roll call to approve the curriculum committee. Mr. Pollard?
Yes.
Mr. Williams? Dr. Taylor? Ms. Schwartz? Mr. English? And I abstain. The next item on the agenda will be the reflection from the MSBA annual conference. It was riveting. I'd actually like to start with Mr. Pollard and how how the delegate assembly went.
It was short and sweet. It was like,
Was it really?
That's what I said.
I think it was like,
Are you sure you're in the right room?
no. But the coffee was fantastic. No, it was like 34 minutes.
Yeah.
Columbia, which it got shot down, I think by 4. I think it was like 63 to 59 or 64 to 59 or something like that. They put together a proposal that would limit the school district's, the board's authority in the community to set severance packages for superintendents. So I think maybe a year or two ago, there was something in Columbia where it was like a very large settlement. And so their board put it together, and there was some pretty heated discussions. But it was fun. So it didn't pass. So the authority stays locally with each school board. I did, since it was so short and I had time to kill. I got a chat with the SBA president-elect Keisha Lee, and just kind of standing there. So told her all about Green Valley and invited her for a tour. And I don't even know what that looks like, but it just seemed like the right thing to do. And she said she had never been invited to tour a district, and she would absolutely love to. And so I've got to get her contact information to you. Yeah, so that was like the only real action item. Nothing else even made it to vote. So it was like 34, 38 minutes, and it was done. It's like,
Yeah,
we
that's
got
pretty
an hour
good.
and a half to hang out.
It usually takes that long for them to get a quorum.
Yeah, so that's, yeah. But yeah, it was good by the time, I think not that it matters now, but I think the signage down there could have been a little better. There were so many rooms, is it at Crown Center, where is it? And so you're walking back and forth, and it's like the Van Buren Hall, and it's like, but there was no signage with anything.
Yeah.
And I think Dr. Taylor, you might have been down there as well, but it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed going. Yeah, so that's, I guess, my brief
All right.
recap.
Dr. Taylor, did you? Mm-hmm. I would concur. It most definitely could use some different signage. I think Lance and I were together, and we were like, "All right, where's this session at? Where's this room? Yeah, we don't have that room in this hotel. I don't know what you're talking about." It's like, yep. But there were several things that out of the sessions that I was able to go to on Friday. I went on Thursday and Friday. I went Thursday morning for the board president meeting, and I shared the link with you all from Catherine. She's doing her, I think, thesis work on how boards can, or I forget exactly what it was, but it was how, let me see here. It was an evaluation process. Yeah. How the board clarifies a district's purpose. So just different things as far as how the board can be evaluated. And she said that there's no real information out there on how to do or track it. So on what she's specifically doing. So it was pretty interesting. But she has to have so many people take this survey before she can do anything with it. That was all that I did on Thursday. Friday, with the sessions, I was able to see several sessions that actually had some enlightenment as opposed to Dr. Welly. But so some of the things that
We
came out-
debriefed along the way.
we did. Some of the things that came out of the sessions I went to were, and we might do some of this stuff already, just, from a building level, from a district level, but one of the questions was asked was, what do you hope that your students have when they graduate? Any ideas? This is a test.
We call it a portrait of a graduate.
So it was a single word on this specific question, but yes, that is another part of it. So
Okay.
confidence.
Okay.
You want your students to have confidence when they graduate to be able to attack whatever is presented in front of them. I thought that was
That's great.
pretty interesting. One of the other things that came out, and Dr. Well and I did speak about this as well, was student advisors to the board. There's lots of different ways to do it, whether it's students from each building that are representatives of the buildings and come to the board meeting to, be that representative, or some of the other districts have ideas of, like, a high school student would be the representative and they would go meet with all those building representatives and get all the information and kind of debrief and then bring that back. So in that conversation, it sounded like there was a MSBA policy around having a student representative to the board. Were you able to look into
Yeah,
that yet?
I did.
Oh.
I did track that down, so I'll forward that to you.
Awesome. So
I forgot
that's
to print
something
that
that
out for
from
you.
a board we can discuss at a later date and figure out if that's something that we want to look at. So, and then one of the other things that I know with, like, professional development, things like that, we put a lot of emphasis on staff members and, making the staff better, and then, like, with coaching and, like, things like that. One of the districts had presented that everything that they do around instructional coaching is student-centered instead of teacher-centered, making sure that it's whatever coaching you're giving is all, so it's student-centered. So is that something that awesome, great. One of the other things was there was an before and after school program. It's called Right at School, and they had a pretty unique program. It's their specific program would actually, they employ everybody and you pay them, they take it over and they do everything. I'm not looking to do that. I'm not looking to replace Valley Kids. But what they do is kind of reinforce and add to the school day. So instead of just having before and after school daycare, they actually have it more educational focused or goal focused with activities and things that they're actually doing inside that program. So we were going to look and see if there's something that we might be able to do within our Valley Kids program to kind of mimic that in some way, just to give more structure.
What was the name of that program?
Yeah, RIGHT at school.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. So one of the other things that came out of one of the sessions was one of the school districts, in looking to try and do better and provide their students more access to things, found out that I'm not sure how they found it out, but there's ways we could do it. Found out that one of their science teachers was actually a licensed veterinarian as well. And in conversations with that, they actually were able to take that to the next level and make it more of a vocational program and put a veterinary clinic in one of their classrooms and have a program centered around that. So that was just what basically came out of that was you don't really know what your staff members can and can't do until you ask them. So you might have some hidden gems that you might be able to get some other things out of. So you just need to try and figure out if we have any of those opportunities. And yeah, that was about it. I mean, Portrait of the Graduate, that was another part of it, so. Oh, yeah, yep. So that was one of the other things, that was brought up was when their boards go to the school buildings, that they actually have a student from the building do those tours. And there's no coaching or anything. I mean, I think at the onset of the program, they let the students know this is what we want to, what the board's going to want to see, things like that. But then after that, it's kind of hands off from administration, and the student leads the tour and answers the questions to the best of their ability. So I thought that was a pretty good idea. Thanks.
Yeah, that, in fact, we could try out something like that in our very next one. We have, I just sent you a calendar invite today. I think it's the Monday, maybe the 17th of November. We'll start at 1:15 at South Middle School, and I could reach out to Mr. Myers and see if he can get us, once I know how many of you are interested on that day, I can have him have one student or maybe up to 3 or 4 students kind of join us on that talk. And I say we try it out and then see what you think. From my perspective, I like the idea, because I think a student perspective on what's going on at the school is great. I think that's a little different focus than what we currently do. So I just want to make sure that when we make the change, you don't feel like you don't want to lose a good thing that you have, because what I observe is a lot of really good connections between board members and the principals during that time. I think you're really getting to know not only the school but the principal, and so I don't want to take that away from you either. But I think having a student perspective is great, or maybe we do some of each. Maybe we have, if we're spending 30 minutes in a building, I arrange to have maybe the last 15 or 20 minutes of that with a group of students or something that, hey, we saw this in the school, what's your perspective on it, or whatever. So I'd be open to any
I
suggestions.
think it may be fun from my perspective to have the student walk us through and do a tour, and at the office where we can sit down and ask our questions to the administrators.
Okay, so maybe start with the students and end just with the principal, kind of as a reflection.
That makes sense.
I hate to lose one thing by gaining another, because I see how engaged you are with the principals when they do that. Oh yeah, take one and pass it. So, that's a good,
We have what?
That's-
What was that?
go ahead.
We do have ambassadors at
Oh,
each
okay.
school, which their primary objective is tour guide. And they typically do it for new families, because obviously principals or counselors might not be available when a family, so they're prepped and ready and excited about it. So yeah, that'd be a great group to
Yeah.
tap into, yeah.
I think it's a good place to start. So we're not creating a new system or process for the principals. We're just saying, hey, could you invite your ambassadors to join us for the walkthrough? So we'll plan to try that out on this next one that we do.
All right,
I brought a handout.
awesome.
So I'm gonna highlight a really good session that I went to. It was led by Janet Tilley. Some of you maybe are familiar with her. She's been with MSBA for quite a while. Her title is Senior Director of Research, and she has really, what I appreciated about this session, and the whole point of the session was, what are the hot topics that people are talking about about education, and then what's the research say? What's the data tell us about what's actually going on in funding and a whole bunch of other topics? And so this QR code on the front page will take you to MSBA's website that highlights the research work that she certainly has been doing. And on the back are 5 of the key topics that she kind of featured in that session. So one of the things that I found interesting was her research around, there's a lot of talk about school choice, education savings accounts, which are vouchers. So the trend of public money being divided between public schools and non-public schools. And so she's collected a lot of data. She's looked at the charter schools in Missouri, how many charter schools have started, how many are still going. So if you get in there and you see a topic that you're kind of curious about, you certainly don't have to go through all of it, but sometimes it's just good to see what the Missouri data shows. And then there's some other, as Missouri is working on its new funding formula, there will be a lot of talk and a lot of comparisons between Missouri and the other 50 states and how we rank, how our funding structure works. And so she's done some research with that as well. So that was a really good session. It was in the afternoon. It was a good way to end the day on a positive, constructive note.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did also speak with the students in the trade show area from Joplin. They were pitching, trying to find judges to come do be debate judges at their extemporaneous speaking
Nice job. That's really good.
engagement in Columbia on April 7th, 2026. I guess they're always in need of
Is that the state
judges.
competition?
It is.
Okay. Locally as well.
I didn't see Grain Valley
First
looking
dibs.
and trying to find any judges at MSBA.
Okay. So there's nothing to report there.
I did find Joplin.
That's good.
So, I think that would be good though. So yeah, maybe if do we put that out in our newsletters that we're looking for judges?
Yes, it's usually through like a Google form sign up that we look, and typically middle doesn't need as many as high, but both
Yeah.
will look. So I'll make sure and tap you next time.
Well, I'm looking at like the community news,
Oh, yeah, yes.
like different ways,
Yes,
and
yeah.
Parent Square, and like
Yeah. You don't
Get
want to
the-
be
get the
solely
word out.
responsible.
I don't.
Okay, got
It's on Facebook, it's on Grain Valley.
There's also an opening on the curriculum committee. Judging and curriculum.
So, we'll be looking for judges. Anybody that wants to be a judge, contact Dr. Allen. All right.
So I've done that before here and at other districts.
Yeah?
And here at one point, is years ago, but they had us wear our gowns to look like judges.
Oh, to look
It
like
was
judges, really?
It was really, yeah, different.
Wow.
Oh, do we
That
have-
is still up for debate.
It's only November and we're already talking about caps and gowns.
All right. Anything else on the conference? It is here again next year, is what I heard, correct?
Yep.
All right. It'll be here again in October next year. All right. Next item is a action item, motion to cancel the November 20th school board meeting. All right.
Maybe there's nothing else to say about it, Mr. President.
So Dr. Welly and I had looked through things, and Dr. Welly had recommended that it be something that we might be able to cancel just based on there not being a lot of new things to discuss or that it wouldn't need to be discussed. I shouldn't say there's not.
Right.
Yeah, it's not urgent. There you go. Thank you. So that's why this board workshop looks a lot more like a board meeting. So we could look at canceling the November 20th meeting. Any other questions or discussion on that? We'll talk about that in a minute, Mr. Pollard. Thanks. There will be a meeting in December. We have, yes, I think 4 meetings in December. So, no other discussion? All right. All in favor of canceling the November 20th school board meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the December board meeting. I would look for a motion to move the December board meeting to December 18th. December 4th.
Do you want to pitch it while you're?
Well, I can't do that.
Okay.
I think so moved, so we can discuss it, yeah.
Thank you. So December 4th, I'll be out of town at a conference, and I just pitched it to Dr. Welly this afternoon that we could move it to December 18th if all the stars aligned. School was still in session till the 19th. We do have several things that we're discussing at the December meeting, but I don't have to be here. If it doesn't work for the majority of everybody else, then we can keep it as December 4th. But I was just looking to see if it would be an option to move it. That would be correct. Okay.
Refresh my memory, do we have a board, or do we have a workshop? That's already off the table.
The December
Okay.
4th will be the board
Be
meeting.
the only meeting.
The only meeting
that-
until
other
the
than-
middle of January.
Mm-hmm.
Do my best, whatever we decide.
I'm not looking to upset the apple cart for the rest of the board members. It was just, if it works out, great, we'll move it to the 18th. If it's not going to be easy, then we'll leave it at the 4th. Okay. All right. So I will withdraw this motion, or you made the motion. Either
Yeah,
we can vote on it, or you can withdraw it.
I don't know what the appropriate thing to do is. I'm happy to withdraw it unless that's against the Robert's Rules of Order.
Nope, we can do that. You
withdraw.
can withdraw it.
Okay.
'Kay.
I withdraw the motion.
Perfect. Motion's withdrawn.
So then just procedurally then, since he made the motion and he withdrew it, and somebody else felt strongly about whatever the proposed action was, could they then make the same motion or make a different motion? I'm not saying that that's what we do. Just, I've just
Yes.
not seen it before. And
Yes,
so I'm just
if
curious about what would happen
if
next.
someone else wanted to make a new motion at that moment, they would need to be recognized, and then they could say, "Yes, Mr. President, Madam President, I make a motion that," if they wanted
Bring
to.
it. It's a learning experience.
Yes. You would.
And the main The main action item, our other visitors that night are going to be representatives from LJ Hart. We have a refinance opportunity on a previous bond that we can realize some interest savings. So that they'll come and present. I think they did that last year at this time similarly. So that would be the main thing. Dr. Allen will also be bringing curriculum that Dr. Gump and her team have been working on. So we'll discuss curriculum, and then I believe it comes back for approval in January. So those are the two main things that come to mind for me for the December business. But we can do that. We can do that with a smaller group. We certainly need a quorum.
All right, very good. No.
Thank you for checking.
Next item, board policies. This is going to be the second read of and discussion on the MSBA 2025 D policy updates. It's also the second read on our policies as well, correct?
Yes.
So these are the 3 district policies and the MSBA 2025 D. The first 3 I'll go through are district changes. The first one is GDBDA support staff leaves.
So the change we're proposing here is to increase the payment of unused PTO and BTO for a non-certified support staff member upon leaving the district. Currently, those are paid out at $25 per day. And we would like to, and our certified personnel get that paid out at a rate of 1/2 of the sub rate pay, whatever it is that year. And out of fairness, we would like our support staff folks for their unused BTO and PTO to be paid out at the same rate. We think that they should have the same incentive to build up their PTO and BTO as our certified staff, and they should be similarly rewarded if and whenever they leave the organization.
And I forget if I had asked or someone had asked previously approximately what the cost would be in addition to what we're currently looking at.
Yeah, so what we did is we went back for the last 2 school years and looked at what we did pay out and what it would have been if we were paying out on this year's sub-rate pay. So for the previous school year, we paid out $9,800 for unused BTO and PTO for non-certified staff. Under this rate, it would have been $25,600, so a difference of $15,800. And the year before, we paid out $11,500, and it would have been $29,600, or a difference of $18,000. So over the previous 2 years, the increase in cost to the district would have been $15,000 to $18,000. But, you know, that makes sense given the fact that the increase is from $25 a day paid out to what would have been, is it 65? Are we at 100 and we're at 130, so paid out at $65 a day. So for the employee who's benefiting from it, it's significant. From a district standpoint, $15,000 to $18,000 increase for that line item is something that we're comfortable with.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this policy? All right. These are not voting. This is just second reads, and then anything that we change, we'll come back to look at. Again, anything that we just say we're good with, we'll come back on consent agenda at the next board meeting. Next item is IKF graduation requirements.
We are recommending changing one word to clarify the meaning when a student from Missouri School District or charter school, private or parochial, homeschool, unaccredited school, basically any transferring student, that their credits, we will consider their credits in accordance with guidance from DESE. It used to say transferred, which kind of sounded like it was absolute, and it was never certain And so a better word is to have it listed as considered, because there are conditions under which we don't have to accept every credit.
Okay, so everything's in line with DESI standards and
Yep.
nothing changes other than
It doesn't really,
just more
No.
clarification on what
Yes.
that means.
and DESI has signed off on the proposed change.
DESI or MSBA?
Or I'm sorry, MSBA. I'm looking at DESI.
No problem. All right, any other questions or comments on? All right. Next one is JECC 1, assignment of students to grade levels / classes.
This takes language that our practice, we already have in place, but it puts it in policy. When we have a student transfer from an unaccredited school and we don't accept all of their credits, they say, well, where does it say that? And so we'll show them where it says it, but it's not in our policy, it's in some other administrative document. So we feel like it doesn't mean that some of those conversations aren't still going to be difficult conversations, but the policy needs to have the hard stuff in it. That's why you have a policy.
So I have no issue with this. I'm just curious how you landed at 4.
Do you happen to know, Dr. Allen, the logistics on that, or why?
I mean, this was established prior to Dr. Smith. It's been the same way, but I think between the admin team and the counselors at the time, their intention was if you were coming to Green Valley to get a Green Valley diploma, they wanted you to be in school more than a year. So there's state diplomas, there's other ways to get diplomas, but what we're trying to really eliminate by this is having somebody come in second semester of their senior year with a paper transcript of things they've done at home and want to walk with Green Valley. So I think it's just making sure they've established enough of Green Valley rigor, Green Valley courses to receive a Green Valley diploma. Yeah.
And again, MSBA looked over this.
Yep.
All right, any other questions, comments on that? All right. Next item is MSBA 2025 D policies. We'll start with those. The first one is EHBD, artificial intelligence use.
So a lot of the policies in this series are changes from MSBA as a result of Senate Bill 68, which had a lot of it had a lot of things in it, but it had a lot of school safety type things in it. From AI policy, this was a new policy in 2024, and now we're revising it again. I imagine that you're going to be revising this one every year, right? So this does bring more clarity to just the latest. Our team has looked at this. They sign off on the proposed changes. They think this is a good idea. The one thing I'll draw your attention to is they make the point in the new policy language and the explanation, the importance of having more than one AI coordinator. So you have a primary and a secondary. We already have a primary in our academic department because when we started, we kind of, we were trying to think, okay, is this going to be like AI, using AI for cheating? Like, are we going to have to do investigations? So we kept it in the academic. But the recommendation is that you kind of get multiple branches of the organization involved in coordinating your AI. So our other coordinator, we would likely tap someone from the technology team to serve as our other AI coordinator. So, like I said, I think this one will get revised pretty regularly.
All right. And as far as those staff members, I mean, are we setting requirements for what their training is, what we're having them do? What are we doing with that? I mean, I hope it's not just you're our AI person.
No, I'll speak to my department first. So in my department, Audrey Harrison, who's our instructional specialist, who also does CTE with me, we team up and we, I would say, go to no less than 3 workshops a year on AI currently. I can't say what that'll sustainably look like, but I would estimate something along those lines. Right now, she and I are the ones who have moved forward with Magic School that we used last year and this year for our secondary students that creates a protected environment to allow students to learn about AI as opposed, and then we block everything other AI tool. But obviously that needs constant monitoring, evaluation. So we've started meeting with Dr. Gooch and Jameer Waddy, Mr. Waddy, I don't know, about monthly, to sort of see all the updates that have happened in the last 4 weeks as far as AI goes. And we do lean on Mr. Waddy when it comes to the security and tech side, not non-instructional side, I'd say, for AI. And we're just trying to constantly evaluate updates, how to keep kids safe, what are the things we do want them to have exposure to, and what things aren't important right now. But it's evolving so quickly that when we make one decision 1 month and we come back the next month, it's already evolved so much that we're having to come back to the drawing board. So it's a little frustrating at the moment, but yes, I know that he attends training as well on his side. There's some great things coming out of it, but you do have to stay on top of it for sure. KCR PDC offers workshops continually too, which is great.
All right. Any other questions on this one?
Not really related to the policy, but I
Then
do
we'll
think
move
it
on.
should, yeah, I do think it needs to
I'm just
be
messing with
at some point a board topic that we discuss. And there
Like
needs to be-
in-depth AI?
Yeah, and we
Okay.
need like an AI strategy. And one of the issues that I'm seeing other places that everything has an AI tool now or offers an AI tool. And if you don't as an organization decide how to consolidate these, they will eat you alive. There's just so many of them. So I think it's a topic, but not for right now.
Yeah.
We'll make note. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. It is something that's going to continue to be around us. Next one is GCPA, reduction in professional staff workforce.
So you don't ever want to have to use your reduction in force policy, but if you do, you want it to be updated. And so MSBA has provided some updates for us. We don't have a problem about this. I mean, it's still pretty much squarely puts the authority to reduce force in the hands of the board with some specific guidance on the reason that, you don't want to be in this situation, but if you are in a tough financial situation or other bad situation, because 80% of our budget is salaries and benefits, if you have to make significant reductions, the only way to do that is reductions in force. So we're satisfied with the changes they're recommending from an administrative standpoint.
So that's not Senate bill, that's just MSBA.
Apparently, yeah, you were gonna get to the G's in your review, but legally they looked at this and they saw a need for it to be updated. So we're fine with it.
Any questions on that one? All right. That'll take us to IGBA 1, special education.
I think we've talked about this a little bit. The rules have changed around qualifying for special education. Basically, when a child age 3 to 5 qualify, it's difficult to qualify a young child that age in special education. They don't, they're not readers. There's just the measures we use when they're older. It's just trickier. And so there is a broader category, YCDD, and what what the law now allows, and this policy is updated to reflect, is that a young child with a disability category, we can now, once they have it as preschooler, we can now keep it on them until age 7. So otherwise, if it's age 6, we have kindergartners, first graders who we really can't justify keeping them on an IEP in the short term, but it's obvious to everybody that they're still delayed, and this gives us more flexibility. It gives us an extra year to hold on to that young child classification while they're while their discrepancy or their other issues in their learning becomes more prevalent, and so they don't end up having a gap. So, some of these kids, what we're trying to avoid is having a child that has an IEP as a kindergartner, they come off as a first grader, and by third and fourth grade, we're reevaluating them for an IEP again. You know, if they're going to need the support, they need it when they're younger, not when they're older. So we agree with the law change, and we like the way the policy is worded.
All right. Any other comments or questions on that one? Next one is JEC1, school admissions.
So the changes that are made to this policy are a result of Senate Bill 68, the safety bill. And you're going to see this language in another one of these policies because it has to do with when a school does a behavioral threat analysis on a student, whether that leads to a safety plan on that child or not, that threat assessment and that safety plan now, if that child transfers out of the district, those documents need to transfer with that child. And so when we receive a new student from another school, if they've been the subject of a threat assessment or they're on a safety plan as a result of a threat assessment, we want to know that day one so that we are providing the right level of support on our end as well. So it's a good change, and this makes sure that everybody in the state is keeping those documents as part of a child's permanent record. Now, what will get sorted out in time will be the student who has a behavioral threat assessment in third grade and never sees one again and transfers out at 10th grade. So I don't know if we have clarity on that yet, but right now our focus is on implementing a new practice of making sure it's in the permanent record, but I think it'll get sorted out administratively. It's just the last year. Okay. Very good. Thank you. To you both.
All right. Any other questions or comments on JEC1? Next one is JECA2, eligibility to enroll.
We already allow non-resident children of employees to enroll in our schools. So if you if you live in a neighboring community, you work for us at least 35 hours a week, your child can be enrolled in our school. If you ever no longer work for us, then your child is now, it's as though you moved away, and your child needs to attend school where you reside. So there was a change in the law that applied these kinds of practices to contracted workers. So so a lot of school districts have contracted services for food service or transportation or maybe even custodial work. We don't have those custodial services, but if we did, or those contracted services, if we did and they worked 35 hours a week, then we would have the same language. So a lot of these things, what MSBA did in their initial draft to us is they gave us it's like they gave us the menu. Here's all the possible things you could include in your policy as it applies to you. And administratively, we now bring this to you with some changes. So the kind of blue that's in there is we clarified 35 hours per week. And then the last two paragraphs that were highlighted in green, but now the words are in red and with strike through, we struck those because we don't have contracted services. And so it doesn't apply to us. And the last provision doesn't apply to us because our practice has been if you don't work here anymore, we treat that as though you moved. So that's a transfer. So that's why we struck the last line. So this has recommendations from both MSBA and local review. Our take on how it applies to our district, and MSBA has seen they've signed off on our revised language.
So this applies to certified and non-certified staff.
Yes.
And I think I had asked previously, but I'm not sure. And this was when we were talking about bus drivers, transportation. Do they work 35 hours a week, would this apply to them? Because I think the question I asked was, I mean, would this be a carrot to try and maintain bus, transportation staff? And I don't remember what the answer was.
We've had drivers who have brought their kids with them. So I think most of our drivers tend to be retired or local already.
I
But
know I've seen a lot. I shouldn't say a lot. I know I've seen several that were drivers and had their young kids with them because they
Correct.
didn't have a daycare, and I know we allow that.
Correct.
So I
To a
know there are
certain,
some.
at beginning at a certain age, but
Right.
yes.
But would they be able to also, if they live in Blue Springs and they're driving for us, would they be able to send their kids to school?
Yeah,
35 hours.
and we have a large portion of our staff, of our drivers that hit that eligibility, so yes.
Okay. Any other questions on this policy?
When they are receiving that, like if a student is in good standing, I feel like we still have the right to say no, right? Or like if they become attendance issue and we're taking an
Yes.
attendance hit on
That's the
them.
most likely, that's the
Like-
most likely thing that happens because there's something about their transportation that, or it becomes a performance issue because the parent is getting the child to school on time, but now they're late for work. So it has to just work out. It has to be good for everybody involved. But it is a good incentive, and it's been a very positive thing for us.
All right. Next one. Hold on. Did I skip one?
Dress code.
Yeah. JFCA student dress code.
So there was one of the changes, I think it was described in here, but the Missouri Crown Act was enacted, prohibits discrimination based on hair texture or style if commonly associated with a particular racial or ethnic group. And so they gave us some administrative procedure guidance, but they also kind of updated the policy language on the dress code. So we've had our team look at this, and we're fine with this. I don't know that it made a significant change in meaning or approach, but they did cite the Missouri Crown Act. So I think a lot of districts were using procedural language that was problematic. They actually recommend that unless you are a one building school, they actually, with one student handbook, they recommend that you don't have your actual dress code in policy. In fact, they don't even recommend that you have it in your administrative procedure, that it really should just be in your student handbook. I feel like it's a principle. I don't feel like it's not really a guideline. No, it's almost a reminder that, hey, 17-year-old, like you're going to be in the workplace soon. You got to get used to not dressing like that. I mean, it's more of a principle than an actual. Right.
It's listed as a goal here, I think that.
Right.
Yeah.
it's-
I mean, it's a good reminder for parents and students that the guidelines that we give on things like this, it's not to be mean, it's not out of the blue. Like, we're really trying to prepare you for adulthood. So, but on the other hand, the change in the law says there are some things where you got to let it be, and there's some hairstyles that unless it's creating a certain safety issue, like, let it go. That's a personal choice and a personal form of expression.
All right. Any other questions on that one? JFCA? Next one is JFCJ, weapons in school.
So, state law now requires reporting to DESE all incidents and credible school safety threats, and there's more clarity on weapons. So we're actually really pleased to see some of this because it clarifies weapons that are prohibited under Missouri Safe Schools Act. And it takes a couple of categories that I think previously were problematic to be listed under Missouri Safe Schools Act because they really weren't Missouri Safe Schools Act. And it moves them to a new category on the next page of other prohibited weapons. So we do think that's a positive move. You'll see at the end of the policy language is the language on reporting. I'm kind of jumping around a bit, but there is, just before other prohibited weapons, there is a line in there that students who are suspended under this provision may be educated in an alternative school. That was being done before, but there had been some lawsuits around students being assigned as part of their punishment alternative school, and so the board has already updated this policy on just making sure that students who are being transferred to another setting out of disciplinary measures have their own layer of due process for that from their discipline. And so I reference it here because that's another change in the language, even though in practice it was already being done by many districts. I can't think of a time when we did it, but I don't want to say we've never done it. I can't think of any, but it is an option.
So, just so I understand that provision, being that we had some things that we worked through.
Yeah, for the weapons.
Yes. So, would this provision potentially apply if they wanted it to?
So the way that this is cleaned up, I think, helps cases where we have disciplined students for things that weren't necessarily a firearm, but they were gadgets, toys, or other devices that were made to look or act like they would fire a projectile.
I'm thinking of one specific item. The one in the, I think it was the weight room.
But it looked like.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, if something.
So would they be able to go to the alternative school?
That would also always be true.
Okay.
That would always be true. But that's not what we decided. But yes, we could have. Doesn't mean we have to establish one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got you. Okay.
But I feel like on the other weapons that this does clarify where some things are listed because they used to be listed. It used to be confusing to have them listed under the Missouri Safe Schools Act when they really weren't. It wasn't that clean. But they're still prohibited, and they
Okay.
can still be disciplined for it.
Okay. Not really, but I'll ask later. Any other questions on this one? No? All right. That will take us to JG, student discipline.
This policy simply clarifies as a result of the passage of Senate Bill 68 that we prohibit the use of any zero tolerance disciplinary policy, which we did not have in place. So in practice, it doesn't change anything, but it is important that our policy prohibits it.
All right. Any other questions? Any questions on that one? Comments? All right. That will take us to JGF, discipline reporting and records.
Okay. So this is to align with a requirement that a prosecutor will notify districts within a certain amount of time, and districts will notify AG's office under certain circumstances as well. So we're used to having certain types of reporting. This adds some. It's not a problem. It's good. There's other clarifications that are made, and other changes of things that would need to be reported that are added in here. And we have an outstanding relationship with our Green Valley Police Department. And in the past, we have had agreements with assault in the third degree. And so we've looked at this, and we don't have a problem with the new language. And, you know, whatever conversation or agreement we need to have with Grand Valley PD, we can certainly do that. And then I think nope, never mind. I saw student discipline records, but we're just reminded that is our exchange with within 5 days of receiving a request. I think they changed how many days you have to do it on some of the records.
All right. Any questions on that one?
Did I mention MSBA has released the next set of policies for us?
You didn't.
No. Yeah. So we got another round on deck. It was a big legislative year.
Next one is JHDE Behavioral Threat Assessment.
So this is the one I mentioned before. So when there's a behavioral threat assessment, and if that leads to a safety plan, that's outlined here. And of course, as we already discussed, if a student transfers in or out with either of those, then that goes with them. So this is actually the policy, I think, that defines those two behaviors, or those two processes.
All right.
Sorry, question on that. Is there, like, I just am curious as to how these are housed at the building levels for, like, the safety plans and threat assessments? Like, where are they currently kept? Like,
Yeah, we'll get her here in a second.
I have a question. So for the safety plans and the threat assessments, where are those currently housed now? And then how would your, like, registrar know where to grab those from to then send them forward? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So our CSTAGs in general are kept in a class folder that is just shared with the admin and counselors, so graduating class of 2027, and they're all together. For any that result in being substantive and then a plan that's put into place, the actual safety plan and threat assessment are part of a PowerSchool add-on that we have, basically called Analytics and Insights. It's where we keep RSPs as well. So when student transfers and we get the records request, our building administrative assistants have like a checklist of things that they have to include, like log entries and transcripts, et cetera. And it includes RSPs and threat assessment or safety plan. And so we revisit safety plans at least every year, if not more often. It depends on the situation, but for sure every year. So that would give us the ability when we meet back with the family to re-up the safety plan or get rid of the safety plan, or, you know, get rid of a step within it. Like sometimes we slowly scaffold off of it, that we would redo that date, update it, put the updated one in there. So it doesn't necessarily mean that our admin assistant would have access within PowerSchool. It might need to be printed by an administrator, but they would be able to see that there's one attached to that student's name, if that makes sense.
All right. Any other questions on that one? All right. Next is JHDF, Suicide Awareness and Prevention.
So they add in under confidentiality that the district may need to share a student's behavior threat assessment or personal safety plan with other districts if they're transferring. So they just wanted to make sure that anywhere in case somebody just grabbed one, because it pertains to a whole bunch of different situations. This one is suicide awareness and prevention, but there might be a threat assessment and a safety plan for other reasons not related to suicide prevention. So they just wanted to make sure that they were redundant across all policies, and so it affected this policy as well.
All right. Any questions on this one? Okay. And that takes us to the last one, JHG, reporting and investigating child abuse and neglect.
So Senate Bill 68 got most of them, but this one went to House Bill 737. And, you know, sometimes you read a rule or a policy and you think, oh, I guess somebody messed up along the way, and this is one of those for me. This policy clarifies what classifies as neglect, and by the changes, it tells me you cannot turn a parent in for neglect who lets their child walk to school. So I would have never imagined doing that, but now it's prohibited. So I don't know. Somebody did it somewhere and it created a problem, so.
Somebody did it to, no,
No.
it's not. But they put it in here.
They put it in here that we,
that it's not.
yeah, it's not neglect to let your child walk to school. Now, maybe for you, you live far enough away, and yeah, but the act alone of having your child walk to school isn't necessarily neglect. There's got to use a little judgment. Yeah, come on. You need more
somebody had
walking
it.
to school.
All right. Any questions about letting your child walk to school? Okay. Very good. We are about to maybe adjourn in a minute, but I'd like to see the board members in the conference room really quick
Afterwards.
after we adjourn.
Okay.
All right. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you.